Somewhere in this house, there's a small computer, about the size of a paperback book, quietly doing about a dozen jobs at once. It blocks ads on every device on my network, my phone, the TV, my partner's laptop. It stores every photo my family has ever taken. It runs my smart home. It streams movies. And it costs me roughly $1 a month in electricity. It's called a Homelab. And once you actually understand what one is, it gets surprisingly hard to keep paying 5 different companies every month for things that one small box in the corner of a room can just do. So in the next 10 minutes, I want to answer 3 questions properly. What is a Homelab, really? What do people actually run on them? And why does this hobby pull people in so completely? No jargon you don't need. Let's get into it. Quick note on what this channel is, so you know if it's for you. This is a place for people who are curious about running their own stuff at home, but feel like the whole thing is gate-kept behind acronyms and intimidating Reddit threads. It isn't. I'll show you everything from zero. If that sounds good, the subscribe button helps more than you'd think, but let's earn it first. Let's kill the mystery first, because the word Homelab makes it sound far more complicated than it is. A Homelab is just a computer in your home that stays on all the time and runs services for you. That's the entire definition. It doesn't have to be powerful. It doesn't have to live in a rack with blinking lights. It can be an old laptop on a shelf. The reason it gets the fancy name lab is the second half of the idea. It's a place to learn and tinker, your own little corner of the internet that you fully control, where breaking things has no real consequences. Here's the mental model that makes it click. Think about the services you use every day. Photo storage, streaming, password management, file backup. For each of those, you're currently renting space on a computer that belongs to a giant company. That computer is in a building somewhere. They call it the cloud, but the cloud is just someone else's computer. A Homelab is you saying, I'll run that computer myself. In my house. The photos live on a drive I can hold in my hand. The movie streams from a box I can see from the couch. That's it. That's a Homelab. A normal computer, always on, doing useful jobs, owned by you. Okay, a computer that runs services is still abstract. Let's make it concrete. Here's what people genuinely run on a first Homelab, and I'd bet at least one of these is something you actually want. Network-wide ad blocking. This is the one that converts people. You run a small piece of software, Pi-hole or AdGuard Home are the popular ones, and it blocks ads and trackers for every device on your network at once. Not a browser extension. Everything. The smart TV, the phone apps, the works. People install this and immediately wonder how they lived without it. A media server. Software like Jellyfin or Plex turns your box into your own private streaming service. Your movies, your shows, your music, with a nice interface on every screen in the house. No subscription. No, this title is no longer available. Photo storage. This is the big one for families. A tool called Immich is, honestly, a near-perfect replacement for Google Photos. Automatic phone backup, face recognition, search, a clean app, except the photos sit on your drive, not a company's server. No monthly storage fee creeping up every year. A smart home hub. Home Assistant is the gold standard here. It pulls all your smart home gadgets, different brands, different apps, into one place, and crucially, it can run locally. Your lights still work when your internet doesn't. A password manager. Vaultwarden lets you self-host your passwords with the polish of a commercial product, fully under your control. And once those basics are running, people branch out. But notice the pattern. Every single one of these is something you're probably already paying for, or putting up with ads for, right now. The Homelab just moves it into your house. So that's the what. Now the more interesting question, why does this turn into a genuine obsession for so many people? Because it does. I want to give you the honest reasons, not the sleazy ones. The first is ownership. When you self-host something, no company can change the terms on you. No price hike. No feature you relied on quietly disappearing. No service getting shut down because it wasn't profitable enough. The thing works the way it works because you set it up. For a lot of people, that feeling, This is mine and it's stable, is genuinely hard to give up once you've had it. The second is privacy. Your family photos are not training data. Your files aren't being scanned. This isn't about being paranoid. It's just a different default. Your stuff, on your hardware, in your home. The third, and I think the biggest, is learning. A home lab is a low-stakes playground for real skills. Networking, Linux, how the internet actually fits together, you learn it by doing it, on a system where a mistake just means you fix it and try again. People put home labs on their resumes. People have gotten IT jobs specifically because they could talk about what they broke and repaired at home. It is, quietly, one of the best ways to learn this stuff that exists. The fourth is cost, but with an honest asterisk. Over years, yes, running your own services can save real money versus stacking up subscriptions. But nobody who's truly into this is doing it purely to save money. Which brings me to the last reason. It's just a genuinely good hobby. That's the part the spreadsheets miss. There's a real satisfaction in building a system, watching it run, improving it a little at a time. It's the same itch as woodworking, or restoring a car, or tending a garden, except the thing you're tending quietly makes your daily life better. That's the loop that gets people, not the savings, the building. Now, the objection. This sounds great, but I'm not technical enough. Here's the honest answer. You don't need to be technical to start. You need to be willing to follow instructions and occasionally search for an error message. That's the actual skill. Everyone running a home lab, everyone, got there by following a guide, hitting a problem, looking it up, and fixing it. That's not a workaround. That is the hobby. And the modern tools are dramatically friendlier than the home lab content from even 3 years ago would suggest. A lot of this is now click-through interfaces, not walls of commands. The community is enormous, the documentation is good, and beginners are welcome. So if I'm not technical is the thing holding you back, reframe it. You're not unqualified. You're just on day one. Everyone was. Last question, what does it take to start? Less than you think. You do not need a rack. You do not need loud enterprise gear. You do not need to spend a lot. There are really 3 starting points. You can use a computer you already own. An old laptop or desktop gathering dust is a perfect first home lab and costs you nothing. You can buy a used mini PC, which is the sweet spot for most people and runs surprisingly cheap. Or you can buy something new and small if you'd rather have a warranty. The point is, the barrier to entry is a quiet room, a power outlet, and a willingness to learn. That's it. So that's a home lab. A normal computer, always on, running useful things, owned entirely by you, and a genuinely rewarding hobby on top of that. The obvious next question is, what should you actually buy? That's exactly what the next video covers. I'll walk through every realistic option for your first home server, what each one is good at, and how to pick without overspending. It's on screen now, and if you want to follow this build from the start, subscribing means you won't miss the rest. I'll see you in the next one.